And we're live. Welcome back to the show. Joining us this week, new guest. Welcome to the show, KP Burke.
Hey, good to be here with you, fellas. Thank you for having me on a lovely Tuesday night.
Excellent. And KP was here. Was this deal was middlemaned by frequent collaborator Bobby Tamboro. KP is a excellent stand-up comedian, and he has a book he's here to promote. Before we get going, let's just say what the title of the book is, and then we'll dive into what we're here to talk about.
In short, number one, thank you, and big ups to Bobby Tamburo. He's a character.
Bobby.
Um, so the book is called "History Isn't Boring, Your Teacher Was," and it's kind of it's a bathroom reader. You know what I mean? Nobody's got time
Sure.
anymore. I can't compete with a smartphone, so we just did 25 short stories from American history about weird stuff you could never really hear about in a history textbook, and we put them into 90-second formats. So the average person can read them in 90 seconds, unless you're from Bayonne, New Jersey, and then it takes you roughly 2.5 minutes.
Right. All
You'll
right.
stop
Well,
before you
I
finish.
I fully support this, by the way. Obviously, History Homos podcast, we're big enjoyers of history, obviously. And yeah, it's and you said it all there with the you're competing with smartphones. So yeah, a book these days is especially for something that like is so cool, is just awesome to be like to put your name on or anyway. But anyway, so KP, thank you for joining the show. I you came up. I as I always do this in the every episode, but um, whenever I book a guest, I always say, "What topic would you like to do?" And sometimes it requires a little back and forth because, hey, we've done this already, or hey, whatever have you, or something. Frankly, I'm not interested in doing. Like I've had some pretty weird suggestions before, but instantly you came up with
The history of game show shit.
yeah. Well,
It's funny,
you instantly came up with Otto Skorzeny, and I said immediately, without even one moment of hesitation, I'm like, absolutely, yes, let me put it down in the books. Let's do it. What got you interested in Otto Skorzeny?
Well, I'm just a really big fan of the movie Evita, and I always wondered who her bodyguard was. Deep cut for anybody who's
Yeah. Well, he
knowledgeable on
did
him,
spend
but
some time with Juan Perón, who is the, the sort of a basis of that movie slash play.
yeah,
Alfred
it's
Krupp was sorry. Alfred Krupp was nudging Skorzeny, going, "Hey, Juan, can you get me in? Can you get me in the room with Juan?" Yeah, I think he sent him to Argentina as an envoy for Krupp, and whatever enterprise, whatever. I'm sorry, KP, go ahead.
no, dude. I love this because the story's nuts, and just to be honest with you guys too, it's so fun when you get to talk to people that actually know history and enjoy talking about it because you can have there's no nice way to say it. You can have a more advanced conversation than you can with a
Sure.
lot of
Yeah.
people. Um, I love and owe a huge part of my career to the great Bobby Kelly, not to be confused with
Oh.
Bobby Tamburo. But
Although visually, I could see the confusion.
they're both doing good now. They're both doing good now. The
That's true, but they are both, the head, it's just fat guy, bald
Full
combo
of ideas, you
usually.
mean? You
they're
mean
they're both doing well in terms of I know Bobby lost a ton of weight. He looks awesome, and
He
he is
does.
probably the greatest like live stand up comic I've ever seen because you just watch that guy work and he's incredible. And
Yeah.
Bobby Tamburo, to his credit, I watched him. We shared a very uncomfortable show outside of Philly just this past. I guess it was a week ago. We did a show as me, him, and Aaron Berg, and Bobby should not have done as well as he did, and he did extremely well. He didn't flinch at
Nice.
all. He didn't let these people get to him. I was very proud of our donkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, no, that's awesome. He's really, I just not to just heap praises on him or anything, but Bobby has been like there for us in like so many times we went through like a major transition of like the show. like maybe 6 months ago, and the first person I called to be on the show when that went through was Bobby, and he was like, "Yes, I'm there," and like it seriously ensured us like longevity that I can't even tell you. So yes, you were definitely leaning on an open door with Bobby Timboro here with this podcast. But yeah, just to say, go back onto what you were just saying before about how I checked out some of your stuff online, basically, is the long and short of it. And yeah, you're definitely playing with the same deck as we are, as far as getting this stuff. So the thing with Otto Skorzeny is like we could just sit here and go through the Wikipedia page and go like, so he he rescued Mussolini and et cetera, et cetera. But no, this is a History Homos podcast. We're not talking just about the Wikipedia page. This was Patrick and I were talking before you got on the Zoom call, and he said something I have to repeat and perhaps paraphrase what he said before, but I'm almost kicking myself. This is what he said. I'm almost kicking myself that I didn't have like weeks to look into this because of there's just so many Kevin Bacon connections between characters you find in other conspiracy and espionage narratives throughout our research throughout the years. And it's like I guess the way I put it is um Otto Skorzeny is like the Forrest Gump of like undercover German operations.
Not bad. I mean, he's when you read about his life, you sit there and you're like, oh wow, the James Bond writers really didn't have to stretch as many. That
Yeah,
wasn't such an imaginative thing. That was really
Tom
more like, all
Clancy
right,
is a
let's.
hack.
But
Of course, anyway, intimidating guy though.
Yeah, most dangerous man in Europe, they say.
oh shit.
6'4" too, which goes back to a theory I heard
320
that
pounds.
it wouldn't shock me, man. You could tell me anything about them back then, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's crazy that they made that work." But when it
It's
comes to
like they
Germans,
cooked up a villain in a lab. And
Mm,
then, but this is where it starts raising my alarm bells. Is when you start seeing somebody fit like a perfect archetype, you're like, okay, something's amiss here. And I gotta give a shout out here to a friend of the show, Corey Hughes. He put me
all
onto
right.
this notion. I listened to an episode of his podcast, Corey Hughes Bloody History, shouts out. And he did a read through of a PhD paper by I want to say it's like a Navy officer training academy, like PhD, thesis or something. And basically the thesis of this is that much of what we understand to be the story of Otto Skorzeny is like a carefully crafted piece of legend that is particularly during World War II for the Germans was like a piece of white propaganda to keep the German people like motivated in the war.
Mm.
And then after the war, um, this is now I'm veering away from what this paper said, of course. But after the war, he sort of embodies this all-encompassing Bond villain style, almost like a fall guy for all nefarious, spooky activities in Europe post World War II. Um, and I just think it's really fascinating because it like intertwines with so many other things that we've talked about in the show.
Otto Skorzeny is just a bin that people lob, uh, you know,
Spycraft into.
yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, he's just the one that everyone's happy. He's happy to take the credit, and everyone's happy to lay the blame on him, for whatever. And there's always like three levels of subterfuge of like story on story on story of crisscrossing motivations and shit. Uh, we can get into the fact, just the fact that he literally hops over the line uh from Nazi Germany to Israeli Mossad, and then in the interim he was fighting communists with under the go ahead of the federal national French police. Then he sets up operations in Spain with no I'm getting ahead of myself. It's just
Yeah, we
The
can go down
dude
all these rabbit holes in a minute.
waltzes. He waltzes right through this shit. And
It's the
so
price
that's
you pay for having a scar on your face that makes you instantly look like you could be up to all the things they think you are.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, just not for nothing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, KP, but generally speaking, a guy who's to do undercover operations and, be sneaky, generally speaking, a identifying facial scar is not really like the look I would cultivate per
foot
se.
four, Caucasian, 6'4", facial scar, awfully big facial scar. That's Naked Gun, but it's a mustache. Yeah, you can't have a 12 foot tall, scarred, like schmoozer, really, like just going around. Uh, Apparently, I mean, he certainly was running ops, but he was not the man that got away with it. He was the man that was, like I said, happy to take credit. Uh,
They always talk about it too with do you guys remember when there was that big push for Idris Elba to be the next James Bond?
Absolutely, yeah.
I wasn't first of all just him as an actor. I think he's awesome, and
He's great as an
I
actor,
would,
yeah.
I would, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing what he did, but I also kind of thought that the Bond movies were getting almost beneath him. I was like, this guy does like really good stuff. I don't know if he needs to be doing crappy Bond movies right now,
Yeah.
the
but
Dark Tower.
Albert R. Broccoli gives him a call and he screens the call.
it honestly, there's a time and place. There's a time and place, but the one that always made me laugh is that they were like, yeah, it'd be great as like a James Bond, and I was like, is that really what we're gonna do? Like, is that really the most if you're going by the idea that James Bond is still, in a post Cold War America, you're like, oh, cool. Who do you guys think is up? We're deep in Russia, and who do you guys think
Yeah.
might be responsible? Is it the British black guy? Do you think he's the one who's the spy? Is it him? He might
I
stand
know.
out a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Especially if he smiles in the dark.
That's the
Don't
other
crack
problem
it.
too. Then you just have people swooning, like they like I can't even be mad at you. You're just too handsome. It's
Sure.
What were we
um,
supposed to do? Look, there he goes.
that's
Um,
yeah. What I was
there,
gonna
there,
say is sorry,
there
what
really
were you
is.
saying?
No, there really is something about the idea that knowing the names of these guys in itself, it defeats the purpose. For there to even be any kind of receipt, any kind of scent to pick up, when it comes to these kinds of operations, it blows the mind that they're just throwing, this guy is
Well, I'll defend the notion of a tad because the other thing you got to understand about there's two kinds of, and this is shouts out to Corey Hughes for this rhetoric, by the way, but there's two kinds of propaganda. There's black propaganda, and this is not what I'm not talking about the new James Bond movies either, folks. But there's black propaganda and white propaganda. Black propaganda is like the Western powers really fucking perfected that. The like sending down pamphlets of like cuck porn into the Japanese to be, or to be like this is what's gonna happen because you're losing the war, and of course. They basically won the European front by dealing in like, spurious rumors of masturbation machines, electric floors, and all that kind of kooky stuff. So but on the other hand, the Germans were masters or masters. I don't know. That's up to a matter of that's a judgment call, I guess. But
they like being called that.
they'll take it.
probably, yeah. I think that would they wouldn't mind that. But I was gonna say they typically
Well,
focus more on the white propaganda, as it were, which is maybe they bending the truth a little bit, but the purpose of the propaganda is to be like, yes, we're fucking awesome, we kick ass, we have this guy named Otto Skorzeny, and he's like basically a Superman, and he can save Mussolini.
look, he's flying with Mussolini on his back right now. And that you just give your life and every limb to the Schutzstaffel, right?
He's a little bit of a Vasily Zaitsev type character, right? Or John Basilone was the big one for the American Marine Corps, where it's like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
became
yeah.
poster boys. But Basilone was supposed to be like a household name, and then Vasily Zaitsev, I'm probably saying it wrong. Obviously, we're talking enemy at the gates.
Mm.
Um, where it's like, hey, you're more valuable to us. We can't risk you dying
Dead.
because if you die, the propaganda effort behind you dies as well.
Right, right. Or, they tried to do this at first, but it sort of backfired. But Pat Tillman, if
I
you
was
recall
just
that.
thinking the same thing. I was just thinking
Pat
this.
Tillman was supposed to be that guy, except he
Yeah,
got there and was like, "Hey, wait a minute! This is the military-industrial complex. This sucks."
go figure. Yeah,
It
no,
is still the saddest story ever because you're like there's just no part of it that can make you feel good.
Do
You
you
get
want
to
to
the
get sadder? Now you got to check out what his brother's up to on YouTube.
oh no.
I've heard
You remember,
rumors.
Patrick? Someone, a guest. Well, we're not going to say who, but a guest of ours, a friend of the show, passed us on this information to be like, dude, you got to check out Pat Tillman's brother on YouTube. And Pat Tillman's brother on YouTube, he thinks he's Jesus. He's the second coming of Christ, and he goes live in his car, which he lives in, and he just basically talks about like stuff that he gets into like a fight on the street. And like would talk about it, and like he would just be like trying to tell people about how he's like, I'm God and stuff like that. It's very sad. So that's even sadder, arguably sadder than the Pat Tillman story.
Oof.
Yeah,
Yeah, die the hero or sort of the hero, and then live long enough to live out of your van.
Yeah, yeah.
Brutal.
Um, but yeah, no,
down
I
by
think
the river.
I will say it is it's you can't talk about that poor fella without discussing the fact that I think his brother dying in such a public way probably had a profound impact on him. I would imagine.
They're probably microwaving his house. Not
His
that,
car, you mean?
or yeah, fair enough. But yeah, no, that's miserable and tragic. But
Yeah, so check
that,
out I Am Yeshua on YouTube.
oh, there you go. But it just speaks to the fact that these these caricatures that states will put up in front of everybody, they only care insofar as there might be a body behind it to like go shake hands and show up and
Right.
you can have pictures taken of them, but they'll they'll just like any other which it's just so funny because like we'll get to Angleton, but talk about like they don't care about anyone. The thing does not care
Yeah.
about its parts, you know. So
In a
um
weird way, the U.S. is more honest because they were like, "Hey, John Basilone, you're the hero of Guadalcanal. Now go home and you can bang a couple movie stars, but you got to sell some war bonds while you're there, buddy. All right, come on."
Yeah.
and
Um,
so what Germany is at a point now what if
1943 is really when Skorzeny became a German household name. So let's start from the beginning here. Otto Skorzeny, born in 1908 in Austria. And he missed the Great War. Was too young for the Great War. Ended up going to college after the Great War and became an engineer. This is important, by the way. You wouldn't think it to be, but it is.
Mhm.
Becomes a fairly talented engineer, and also he while he's in college, he participates in like what I guess the American equivalent would be like a fraternity, but it was called a student corporation uh in university. And one of the things they did is like almost ritualistically but probably more like a hazing slash like like dick measuring sort of thing. They would do the fencing, they would fence with no mask on as
Mhm.
part of like their again, like it's sort of like a dick measuring college type. I don't know, I didn't go to college, so
The-
I didn't do borderline gay shit when aged 18 to 21.
you can fence
But
anywhere.
before and after, as I mean, you were open for everything, right?
I still am today. I did say there was an end date to that.
I did notice the title of the show. That's all I'm saying. So I feel comfortable here. I'm an ally.
Yeah. But
But speaking of gay shit, what's gayer than like, wanting to have your face cut open so you can have a performative scar? Because that's actually a huge thing in European officer class. Uh, uh,
yeah.
like you said, these it's not so much a hazing as it is like a voluntary like expectation that you wouldn't think twice about possibly suffering a deep scar that you actually don't nurse, you don't try to help heal
Yeah.
properly. They would
It's like
stick.
cropping the ears on a dog.
Like literally though. Yeah, it's like a fairly I mean, I guess it's like the modern day or the modern day equivalent would be like just being like a what's it called? Steroids abusing like bodybuilder guy where it's like you're you know what I'm talking about, Aaron Berg, like you look like you take steroids, you know what I mean?
But
He's
yeah,
pretty honest about his life.
I didn't say he's dishonest about it. That's why I picked him is because he's been been pretty honest about it. But yeah,
I'd
I mean
fight Skorzeny before I
when you
fight Berg.
picked sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say
Sorry,
just
I'd fight Skorzeny before I fight Berg. That's yeah.
I don't know. I think you might have an easier time with Berg, honestly. He's like five
I
foot
don't know why
nothing.
Berg has not been cast as like actual Wolverine because he's Canadian and
Yeah.
he's built like the traditional Wolverine. Like it would have been, I would be on board for give him 10 movies with Ryan Reynolds now. I'll probably watch 9 of them.
In the 90s, I don't know if you knew this, as a New Jersey native, you may have this knowledge, I don't know. But in the 90s, Glenn Danzig was in talks with Stan Lee himself in order to play Wolverine because he indeed is 5'4", the canon height of Wolverine.
I did a show in this is years ago, and she was an absolute sweetheart. But I met Danzig's niece at one of my shows,
I'm sure
and
she's an excellent example of New Jersey gentry.
she is. I'll tell you what, you would never suspect it at all. But her and her husband, both very cool people, great senses of humor, and they're talking to me after the show, and she's mentioning who she is. She's like, oh yeah, my uncle, blah blah blah. And I said, how do I know you're not messing with me right now? And then she just looked up, and then the ceiling started to bleed. So it was definitely her. There's no doubt about it.
You ever see that video of him like showing off his book collection and he's sitting on the floor and he's going, "Here's a book about vampires. Here's a book about werewolves."
The one of him getting knocked out backstage by his own
Oh, that's a
security is pretty
classic
much
too. Yeah,
that played on loop for me for a while.
yeah, dude. I downloaded that on LimeWire in 2004.
LimeWire, there's a reference, buddy. That was
Yeah, I
I talk
reference
about
it
that sometimes.
probably every episode, dude.
Yeah, we have brought up LimeWire. What was the other one? Frost something?
Frostwire was when LimeWire went down, but then LimeWire came back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Danzig showing off his books. I don't like this.
I'm not ashamed to say I have Danzig's face tattooed on my arm.
That's right, you do. That's
I was ready for this.
It's a pretty poor, piss poor rendering, but I have the cover of Evil Live by the Misfits on my arm.
Oh, fantastic! If it's a bad enough version, people just think it's what's his name from the oh hi Mark, that movie.
Tommy
Yeah,
Wiseau.
it's oh shit, it's him. They're the same guy without the facial hair.
It's so close, it freaks me out sometimes.
Yo, they have a similar cinematic output, by the way, which I mean to say shit.
Oh man,
Oof. I
I've
don't know if I
got
knew that
something
Danzig
to
acted.
say.
Well, no, he directed.
Danzig, yeah, he's done
Danzig
some
did.
like weird, like erotic Western monster horror movie
Oh man.
type bits.
Exactly what you think a Danzig movie would be, KP.
All right.
Don't
Well, I'm terrified. I'm also Googling that after, and my poor
Yeah,
girlfriend's
oh
gonna have to
yes, you
watch it
are.
with me
It's
tonight.
definitely worth a fucking hate
you have a
watch.
brain worm or anything like that, just put your head up to the screen and it'll come out the other
Oh, I
ear.
like that. Right on.
Yeah, you'll be all right. But yeah,
Yeah,
Skorzeny
so
facial
I was
scar,
gonna say, yeah, we'll get
stuffing
back on topic.
horsehair into his scar to make it worse. So it's like, oh, look at me. Yeah, shut up.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Oh, I'm so tough. I let another man scratch me with his phallic symbol.
Wow,
No,
it's a-
actually, he's kind of badass in a way. I don't really want to give him the Werner
no.
Herzog voice. But what's it called? So are the what's his name from the director Verhoeven
Verhoeven.
voice? Yeah, the Verhoeven voice.
Shit, speaking of
Um
men's scrubs.
but what's it called? So
Um,
okay, so I mentioned before he was an engineer and when
Which comes into play heavily later with
it does,
a
yeah.
couple of the missions.
Yeah. He ends up during the he gets involved in the Austrian version of the National Socialist Party. But we're gonna obviously not gonna go in depth here. He actually has a fairly in-depth involvement in the Anschluss, because he was like a party leader in the Austrian branch of the National Socialists. So, but long story short, the Anschluss happens, and he is uh, at this point volunteers to be as part of the Luftwaffe now that he's a German in good standing after the Anschluss. And they tell him, dude, you're like 6'4". There's no way we could fit. And as I understand it, today in today's military, the planes are bigger than they can have slightly taller guys. But even still today, I don't think a 6 foot anybody, 6 foot plus anybody is getting in a fighter plane.
Probably not. No.
Well, that
Yeah.
and his age too. I think he was 33,
Yeah.
and
So you're
just
saying I'm
for
too old? You're
well,
saying I'm too old
buddy,
to be in the SS, dude?
You
I'm
might be.
it sucks too. I'm a Navy veteran, and I remember when I turned 35. I'm 37 now, but when I turned 35, that's when I finally said, I was like, all right, can't go back in if I needed to. All right, that dream has sailed, because I don't think they would take me in after 35, even if they bought back years. So 35 in a modern sense is too old for the military. And now we're talking about, the 1940s here. So 33 and 1940, they're like, dude, this middle age, why is Jack Lemmon trying to come here and kill people for us?
It's like
This
that scene
elderly
in American Beauty where Kevin Spacey goes and he applies to work at McDonald's and he's like, "Yeah, we're not looking for any managers."
It's
um
depressing.
Yeah, but so yeah, he wants to do that. I also that just sorry as a quick aside here, but do you remember after 9/11 when Bruce Willis volunteered to be in the military, like as like a like ball fanning stunt? Because obviously he was like 50 already, like by the time this was by that point. So there's no way the military would have taken him, but he went out, and I remember they were talking about it on like CNN or whatever. I don't remember what, but I remember that on the TV. And just thinking like, what a fucking. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they paid him to say that. That was fucking CIA. Like, oh, I'll cut you a check, Bruce Willis, for saying to join the military, so we can get a bunch of young guys to join the fucking military.
It's I'll tell you what, when I joined the military, I knew there's certain movies you watch and you're like, all right, I have to experience this. This is like, it
Sure.
calls to me. And then if I had just watched Tears of the Sun, I would have been like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to do this. This actually doesn't seem great at all. In fact, anytime I try to rewatch that movie, about 60% of the way through, I'm like, I don't care to finish this. I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening.
Is that
Sad.
worth that's a movie I've passed up many a
I've never
time.
watched it, but I know I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Uh, that's
It's
worth the gander. Yeah.
you know what, throw it on one night when you're bored and let me know how far you get into it before you're like, all right, I just don't care anymore. I'm not attached to any of these people. They keep making terrible decisions. I don't like any of this. I
Okay.
watched it again after I was in the military, and I was like, nope, still same thing. I can't hold a candle, and there's nothing bringing me to this movie.
On the topic of movies, military movies, what is the best war movie in you good gentlemen's opinions? If we're because Apocalypse Now is basic.
That's a safe
Yeah,
answer.
it's
But
safe,
yeah,
but
KP, what's yours? Let me think for a minute.
I'm probably gonna say Black Hawk Down. I loved because they Hollywooded up a couple of things here and there, but for the most part, like the way that they told the story about how like that one rings true to me after having served. And don't get me wrong, I didn't do anything badass. I was in the Navy. Um, but that one was pretty accurate to me, like in terms of how they talk to each other and stuff, because there's nothing worse than like a bad screenwriting thing where you're like, oh cool, the sergeant has to earn the respect of the lieutenant or something. Like, that's not
Sure,
how it
yeah.
works. But
yeah, I don't that checks out because that movie I haven't seen that in years, but I can recall it watching that way too young as a kid, getting all the wrong ideas.
The skinnies, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
just the way Delta Force worked too, man. That was the greatest thing ever. You're like, all right, so Delta Force is real. We've confirmed it. This is not the Chuck Norris version. And
Yeah.
you know, I
Skorzeny
thought Eric
walked so
Bana
those guys
killed it.
could run. For me, I guess my favorite war movie, I don't know, like Operation Dumbo Drop.
wait,
You ever see
what?
that one?
No. Look at
I'm
that.
joking, obviously. I don't know. Yeah,
Come and
probably
see.
Apocalypse Now or
Uh, you guys
something
seen
like
Come
that.
and See? Is that ringing any bells?
Which one?
No.
Come and See. Come and See.
Yeah, that's like a Soviet propaganda movie, but it's entertaining. I thought it was cool.
I've seen bits of it, and I'm like, this looks miserable. I don't
It
want to get.
is.
I want to
I've
get.
watched it drunk a bunch.
Oof, it's tough being depressed and drunk, man. That's I don't need anything else adding
As
on
night
to
follows day.
it.
But okay, so sorry, you were just about to say something?
Speaking of drunks, Otto Skorzeny.
Oh yeah, that's a great segue actually. Yeah, bro loved the fucking Bev. Um
Oh,
but
Bev.
what's it called? So yeah, so they said kick rocks Otto. And
Well, they saw
the
you score.
Luftwaffe.
They
No, of
saw
course not. He joined the SS, the Waffen SS, of course.
we're gonna keep you on
Um
the ground.
and he spent some time in France, which, by the way, I heard I got a few anecdotes from his book. First of which was this is he told this story to sort of illustrate like how like what's the word disciplined the SS guys were when they had first deployed in the first. And mind you, by the way, there was fighting, but it wasn't like it's not like what we think of when we think of World War II. Like they came in, the French pretty quickly surrendered, but for a while they were occupying. And during this occupation, apparently an SS guy had been like, banging a French chick from the village or whatever. And after a few months went by or weeks went by, her husband got released from POW camp and came back and
He's like,
walked into the house and the and was like, "Oh, what sacre bleu." I'm guessing. And so the woman was like, "Oh, this German barbarian, he is raping me." And so the German military police came and arrested him for rape. And a bunch of the soldiers in his unit were
yeah,
like, they submitted complaints to the court martial, and they said, "Hey, this isn't rape. This was like, the woman said that because she got caught, her husband showed up or whatever." And apparently the guy, and this guy apparently had a big impact on Skorzeny. But he said that yeah, we're SS guys. We don't come to countries and then fuck the women. Like, he's going to be put to death. I don't care if the circumstances are that it was consensual. This is not how a SS officer acts. Period. So the sentence happens, and yeah, they
Take
shot
that,
him.
Me Too movement. All right, you're not going to stop the SS.
Yeah, they're feminists, dude. Oh, they
Holy shit.
always believe women. But I just thought that was an interesting fucking anecdote, and interesting that that's how that's Skorzeny, despite the fact that we mentioned later he seemingly had no um lifelong loyalties or anything, sort of a self-server, but that's how he wanted the SS to be remembered, I guess. And when indeed, in not to jump ahead here, but at his funeral, they all threw up. They all threw up their. They all saw their friend's son Kyle, who's about this tall.
oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I throughout my reading, there were several parts where it's just regularly, especially in Spain, like he's just meeting with guys and he's being surveilled. And they're like, yeah, he's meeting with guys. They're all saluting him. They didn't mention what kind of salute. I can't imagine it was.
I'm sure it was the Bellamy salute.
Yeah. That
That's how you
one.
get away with saying that, by the way. You either got to call that or a hot Kanye.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
Um,
Um, but
so
yes, yeah. Go ahead,
yeah,
Patrick.
once he was in the SS, he cozied up pretty quick. Like they,
Yeah, it's something of a meteoric rise.
yeah, yeah. That was what, 38 when he went in, and then by 43, he's a household name. Now, if we can get into operations and all that and how he became the household name that he did, uh, unless
His
there's any,
timeline always confuses me. I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to
yeah.
just
No,
add
go
because
ahead.
he trained with Hitler's bodyguards, if I remember, but I think that was before he went to the Eastern Front.
Yeah, well, it seems like that is when he was in the SA.
Oh, right on.
With was so for those who don't are avid Nazi fucking historians, the SA was a later defunct paramilitary group like the SS, but it was fronted in Germany at least by a gay guy. That's the difference.
Hugo Boss. He's everywhere, folks.
Him too, but I meant what's his name? The fat gay guy who what the hell's
Boring.
that guy's name?
No,
I'm you know what, guys? I'm gonna literally type
Truman Capote.
fat gay Nazi
Uh,
who was killed on Night of Long Knives.
oh,
Ernst Rom.
yes, yeah,
What a name.
Uh
poor guy.
yeah, they have great names, I'll say that. Um But what was I gonna say? So yeah, that is an interesting. So yeah, I think you're onto something there, KP. But he does have like some weird, like again, it's something of a meteoric rise, and it is weird that he was like rubbing elbows with Hitler very early on in his military career. And so anyway, he ends up in the Eastern Front, and ends up getting injured by they call it a Stalin's typewriter, I believe they're called, but it's
Yeah.
like basically a truck with a bunch of like rockets on the back or like and they
The
send him back
Taliban
to
would later,
did they
re
use them? That'd be kind of sick.
trucks with rockets on the back, and
Well,
it's
yeah, but those weren't made by Stalin. Those were made by the CIA.
those are made by Ford,
Well, yeah, they were made by Toyota, I think.
Toyota. That's where this, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
But yeah, so this was in the Battle of Moscow, he was hurt. And apparently there was like a plan. This is the thing, again, it's like Forrest Gump. He was part of a plan to blow up the Volga Canal. So, and Hitler had the idea apparently to turn Moscow into a lake by like dumping the but I don't know if I believe that either. That seems like fucking black propaganda too, because this is everything that the history books accuse the Germans of in World War II. They did very early on in the History Homos catalog. We did an episode about the Dam Busters raid, um, and it was the Ruhr Valley in Western Germany. The British did a fairly daring. I got to give them credit for this. It was pretty daring. They flew all the way from Scotland to the Western Germany at 15 feet off the ground the whole way. And they figured out this way to bounce a bomb off of the water so it would, sort of just like so on the camera, I'm trying to do it on the camera. So if you're watching the
Emmett,
video, pay attention. So it basically went like this, boom, and bounced forward and slammed into a dam, which promptly flooded and killed thousands of Soviet POWs.
Effective. That's what I
okay.
heard. That's my
It did.
takeaway.
It did fuck up their industrial base in the Ruhr Valley, though.
Well, I think, because I remember what you were talking about with that, but it was, I want to say that one of the things that they tasked sort of, I think he was supposed to flood Moscow, which to me, I sat there. It's like when you're reading about it, like, is this the Nazi party or is this Bane taking over Gotham? Like this is like Bane
They do
type
have funny
shit.
voices.
It's all there. Again, it makes you realize that the sci-fi guys and the military fiction people, they're not really, they're kind of just loosely ripping off stories sometimes. So
So
it was
true.
I think they probably thought that the Russians might have destroyed their own city because they kind of have a history of that. Whenever someone's getting a little too close to home for them, they just kind of
Yeah,
burn their own shit and move
Napoleon,
on.
notably.
Right on. But
Yeah,
he was a character.
for sure. So anyway, ends up hurt from that injury, and they sent him back to Germany, where they basically were like, all right, we're gonna put you in a more administrative role. And this was basically his moment. Okay, this is 1942, 1943 by the time he's back up on his feet. And it's really important to note here is that this is after Stalingrad. This is after the failed Operation Barbarossa, and the Germans are now in retreat, frankly, and it doesn't look so good for them. So Hitler, and probably more so Goebbels, probably had a lot to do with this plan, which was to cut something of a regal, adventurous figure with one Otto Skorzeny. And the other thing was, this was another sort of what do you call it, downturn for the Germans, was that after the Americans had successfully landed in Italy, the Italian government, they put in a vote of no confidence in Parliament in the Mussolini regime and revoked his sovereignty over the country and installed like the military. Basically, it was a military junta, took over under, and also the king. And so, as part of this, the military arrested Mussolini and was actually moving him all around Italy in order to prevent him from being rescued by the Nazis.
You just gotta keep them moving. Just keep moving them from
He's a
chateau
little guy, so it must be pretty easy to move him around.
they just put them in a bag. They just put them in a bag and whip them over their shoulders. You
You
got a
want to
guy
go
with a
skiing,
short
Benito? We'll take you skiing.
He apparently liked it, but yeah, no.
bunny, the
Yeah, well, he's a
bunnies.
little guy, as I mentioned before, but yeah, so he was in he was in like Sardinia. So this is really where, so I that paper that I was listening to Corey Hughes talk about was really interesting because it sort of highlights all of the sort of discrepancies between, first of all, Skorzeny's autobiography, and also what he told American interrogators when he was eventually captured. They
Mhm.
are pretty strongly in contrast with each other as far as details go. And then also, he compared the testimonies of like guys like General Kurt Student of the Wehrmacht, who oh, by the way, also I should mention that Hitler created a whole new like bureau or like squad specifically for Skorzeny, and like the thesis behind it was basically like, I'm going to create like a special operations group that's on call from any other department in the Reich. So in this instance, when they were going to rescue Mussolini, it was like the Wehrmacht, maybe no, it was the Wehrmacht, I think, because Kurt Student was a general in the military, in the army. So, uh, but anyway, so what I'm trying to say, I said all that to say this, is that Kurt Student was like, yeah, I planned the whole thing, basically. um, and that was obviously in strong contrast with what Skorzeny himself will tell you. But the but I will say this is that that Student also said that the whole reason they were able to locate Mussolini was because of the fact that Skorzeny had a insane network of informants, embedded spies, and all that kind of subterfuge network going on that allowed them to actually pinpoint where he was, which was this Grand Sasso Hotel in northern Italy, or middle in Italy, actually.
So this is leading up to, I think the timestamp I had on that one was 1943 for Operation
Correct.
Oak, correct?
Yep.
So
Correctamundo.
I think just before that, there was something crazy that happened where he wound up going into, it was I believe he parachuted into Iran, and he was actually supposed to unite the tribes to rebel and start causing problems for like the British Empire.
Yes, that is another one. Yeah, I forgot about that.
They wouldn't commit to him. So in a weird way, he's now, you guys said, obviously Forrest Gump, but in a weird way, he's also kind of Lawrence of Arabia in a weird way too.
He's the German Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah.
Otto of
So I'm
Arabia.
sorry, I want to get to that one before we said the Operation Oak thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, bud.
No, no, I forgot about that detail. But after all, by the way, Iran does mean Aryan.
Oh, see, no wonder they like each other.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they are Aryans. But what do you call it? So I forgot. Actually, had forgotten about that story. But there's another thing. It's like, where does the truth begin and the myth stop? You know, who knows? Again, especially because that operation never really fully transpired. A lot of it could just be like stuff that they were like, they were over lunch with Hitler. They were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we got all the the various tribes in Iran to take over?
Yeah, yeah. Let me write
It's
that.
do you guys watch Danger Five at all? Have you ever seen
I've
it?
seen it before. Yeah, shouts out young Travis who put me onto that show. But I've seen it before. Yeah, and it's pretty funny. Yeah.
That's the proper way to do like a hilarious, like there's a couple other perfect examples. Like Mel Brooks always has it figured out. Sandler always did a good job whenever they brought him up. But that's if you're going to make fun of Hitler and you're going to make sure that nobody can, no one can sit there and take it seriously, then that's Danger Five has it all figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick, it's basically like
Oh, I've
I
seen
guess it
it.
would be a similar. Have you seen it before?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Oh,
great.
you have seen it. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, for those listening though, it's I guess it would be similar to like the Thunderbirds and like the or like maybe like the Super Friends, but they're Nazis, basically would be like the best way to describe it.
uh, it's such a weird like confluence of
Yeah.
things.
Well, they're actually not. Yeah, they're going to into the Nazis, but whatever. But it's a fucking crazy show.
It's
It's a
like
amalgamation of 70s action stuff, like 70
Yeah.
actions tropes from TV and everything. And then the second season is all 80s tropes, but the mission is the same: kill Hitler every
Yeah.
episode.
that's yeah, that's the running gag, and they're like their handler, their guy they go to is literally just a guy with a giant mascot style eagle head, and
Yeah.
it's like a debonair British gentleman's voice speaking through an eagle. He's just saying, and yeah, like you said, and as usual, Kale Hitler.
When the German dogs in that start
Yeah.
speaking in German in the show, that's when I remember my first brain synapse fired up. I was like, all right, well, we're watching all of this, but
Yeah. Yeah, there's
It's
some good dog puppeteering in that show.
those
100%.
like the if you ever seen Death Proof, Planet Terror, that whole
Of
time, and
course.
the little interstitial freaking
Oh, you were like fucking 12 when that movie came out, weren't you?
2007, I was 12, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Oof. I went to go see that 3 times in theaters.
Good shit, dude.
Didn't even need an adult to let me in.
Whoa. Listen, I got around
Um,
to it in my
yeah.
own time.
But
Um,
yeah, what about it though? Sorry.
oh, that in that style. If you watch those like fake trailers for fake movies,
Oh, like
uh,
Thanksgiving.
yes, Thanksgiving, like Nazi bitch vamp wolf werewolves from hell or whatever the movie. It's good
You're
stuff.
talking
It's
about Grindhouse here.
yeah,
Yeah.
Grindhouse was the
Yeah,
was
Rob Zombie's Sherry Moon Zombie is the Nazi werewolf women of the SS.
there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So folks, if you're into that stuff, tune into the History Homos. And then after you're done here, check out Danger 5. Let's get
Sure. So the plan was we need to get Mussolini out. He was in a hotel which was up in the mountains. The only way you could access it was through a cable car. Again, it just seems like a scenario for a film, I know, but it is
On
reality,
his
or so
Führer's
they say.
Secret Service.
Yes. from
Dr.
from the
Nine.
Italian Alps with love. Um, and so the plan was to go in with like gliders or something. What exactly do you,
Yeah.
KP, do you know the exact operational, order of what happened?
So it looked like, if I remember, it was that he had his special forces unit. They were going to liberate Mussolini, and it was very James Bondish, like you said. They were going to use glider planes to launch a silent attack on a
Right.
ski resort where Mussolini was being kept, and it was pretty insane that Skorzeny and the boys were able to pull all of this off. They literally pulled off an entire Bond movie inside of 10 minutes, and they were back in possession of Mussolini.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they didn't fire a shot.
Yeah, it was totally PG. The fact that no one died, not a shot went off, it screams of like a handoff to me, like rather than an actual rescue.
I
Like,
like
how
that.
does that happen?
I will say this is that if you look at the photo here, I'll actually pull it up and show you guys to see if you can tell what I'm saying. Otto Skorzeny Mussolini rescue. And let's look at images. And the way that this picture looks to me, it looks like Skorzeny is saying, "I can't believe we got away with that." And you'll
The
see what I mean when I share that
Was this the
for.
photo that of him when they're coming off the plane? Because that
Yes, this is the one
he
I'm talking
petitioned
about right
heavy
here.
for that. That was his political. He was very politically minded. He kind of made sure that, I think they told him, like, all right, so the plane that Mussolini's going to be on is already full, and he goes, oh, I have to fly back with you guys, because he knew that if he was on the plane with him, he would wind up getting. I think Goebbels would be like, oh, cool, look at Otto pulling things off. Look, good for you, buddy. And he petitioned heavily. That was him politicking his way onto that plane. So he actually put everybody else at risk for a photo op.
For sure. And also the pilot almost refused to go because he's like, dude, you're fucking like 300. You're like Andre the Giant. Like you can't be on this fucking plane. And also the rest of us. I know Mussolini is 0.75 of an average man, but uh you are like 1.5 of a man. So it's not gonna the math don't work out. And but I gotta say I like the lore. I like the lore and but I will say, to me, this is Goebbels said to him, "Now listen, motherfucker, you're gonna get your fucking face in the picture. We are losing this war, and the people are going to do a vote of no confidence on Hitler if we don't get somebody keeping a Pat Tillman esque kids involved in the process here." So that is and you gotta look at it both ways because there's on the inwardly and outwardly. Outwardly, this is the Germans flexing nuts, being like, "Look, we can just take back Mussolini. Yo, look at these feckless Italian goombas bumping into each other, like Koopas." And they don't. It doesn't matter. We can literally take back our guy without firing an entire shot, firing a single shot, and so that's impressive outwardly, but inwardly, yeah, it's like every young boy wants to be fucking Otto Skorzeny.
Yeah,
That's who they're playing as in the backyard.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one wants to be Frago Skorzeny. That's for sure.
I was passed over. I was passed over. I
I'm
was
s-
That's
supposed
when I
to
think
be
I
the
realized.
world's the war hero. I'm smart.
I can do things. Watch me do a flip.
With his fucking fishing hat. This stupid fucking German. He's wearing one of those ones with a little feather in it, and he's wearing like lederhosen, I assume.
He was banging beer hall servers 5 at a time.
It was splashing everywhere.
Um,
Yeah, but no, for the audio listeners, just know that Otto Skorzeny is a total ham in that photo. He's totally just photobombing, and Mussolini looks very, very fashionable with a nice black coat, collar up, and a nice black hat. Very, very nice.
Record scratch. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering, how did I get here?
Well, it all started. Where did it start? at the
It
point of this.
started a man, a plan, a canal.
They-
Austria.
Well, yeah,
um,
that bridge. I don't know where in the timeline that falls. He was sent to go demolish a bridge, or no, take overtake it from, I believe, Allied forces. It collapsed of its own accord.
no,
Okay.
he blew it up. I'm
They
pressing X to doubt, Alex.
well, so yeah, so the official narrative, even by, from, Germany itself is, yeah, he didn't follow through with that mission. There's a few of them, like the Iran one, that he didn't, it's known that it didn't quite pan out as expected. But I just found that such a weird thing that, like, he didn't accomplish.
He pulled a good, the bad, and the ugly. Two sides fighting over a bridge. He just blew it up and said,
Oh, oh,
Solid reference, by the way.
"Thank you."
that's so good. Yeah.
Everyone's going to a bridge on the River Kwai or anything like that. But the fact that he went Sergio Leone on that is pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Well, listen, it's in my blood.
That's
Um,
that whole part of Good, Bad, and the Ugly with the, like, drunk general, his monologues, that's like a really heavy part in that kind of, what's
Great movie.
Western, yeah.
And
But
no one ever got mad that a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, Eli Wallach, was playing the hell out of Mexican bandits for a
I was
hot
gonna
minute
say he
there.
did play the hell out of it. Yeah,
Oh.
I wouldn't have known until later on when I went on 4chan and learned some things about certain things. I had no idea that that was not a Mexican guy.
It's well, he was Calvera in the Magnificent Seven too, and it was like he
Yeah,
steals the movie. You're in a movie with Yul Brenner and Steve McQueen, and he's somehow the best part, and he's the bad guy.
he is great.
what's his
Also
Reynolds played a was it Burt Reynolds? Played a Navajo, I think it was.
in the Burt Reynolds isn't in the Magnificent Seven.
No, no, not
He's
Meg.
thinking Charles Bronson.
No, no, it wasn't Charles Bronson.
Charles
All right.
Bronson can kind of pass for Navajo, though, in my opinion. He's like some sort of weird Slovak, and like he's
He,
just a sort of mystery meat. He can pretty much
He looked
play
like
it.
Jim Thorpe.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Navajo
Um,
Joe, yeah, Burt Reynolds is he plays Navajo on a revenge tear.
Oh, okay. I think the
Yeah.
confusion was we thought you were talking about someone from the Magnificent Seven. So
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
my bad then, buddy.
No, it's all. Listen, you know whose bag it is? Freaking freaking
Burt
Skorzeny.
Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds. There we go. Yeah.
Um, but what I was gonna say is, so yeah, they managed to get Mussolini. Obviously, this makes him a household name. And yeah, so the next thing he went on to was, oh, also we should mention that again, in the aftermath of the Battle of Stalingrad, the Germans are on the defense. They are retreating back into Germany, but they are at the time, or prior to the war, I should say, they had made what they thought was a fairly solid alliance with the Hungarians. And the Hungarian prime minister, what's this guy's name?
Miklos Horthy.
Miklos Horthy.
Some people have a
Um,
name that just resonates.
Yeah, Miklos Horthy. Yeah, he was making overtures to the Allies because frankly, he saw the way the wind was blowing, and he was going to make peace terms with them because they had been losing quite a few men. Not they were actually active. People forget, but the Hungarians were active Axis members, and not just volunteers into the SS, Waffen SS, brigades, volunteer brigades, but they actually had, actually a military presence on the Eastern Front, and they were getting their asses kicked because the Soviets were just springing their own prisons to fight the war. So the most hardened criminals in the
yeah.
world, because they survived being in the gulag, are now the front line of your troop. And they sent, and this is again, this is a piece of black propaganda, but the story goes that they would send them marching west from, I guess, St. Petersburg or something, or I guess it would be called Leningrad. And they said, where's my rifle? And they said, oh, don't worry. When you get there, there'll be one for you.
Oof.
Check to see if it's loaded. Yeah.
Yeah.
To your propaganda thing too, by the way, did you guys do what was the one where he was supposed to kill Churchill, Stalin, and FDR?
Oh yeah, the
They
ultimate.
can't prove if it was real or not.
Yeah. Was that Operation Greif? Where he was sent as like a distraction slash chaos agent in uh in the Ardennes,
I think this was so. What I'm trying
or
to.
was
My
this
grandfather fought in
Werewolf?
battle.
There was this Operation Werewolf.
I want to say it was. They were supposed to be. I want to say it was Iran again that he was supposed to. There was going to be some meeting or something like that in like Churchill, Stalin, and FDR were all going to be in the same place, and it's one of those things
Oh,
where like, all
what a
right, whose
shame that
propaganda
didn't
do you
happen.
believe? Well, if they if they had pulled it off, I think it would have been like I think the way that the Nazis spun it is they were like, yeah, it didn't work out, you know what I mean, blah blah. They were on to us or something like that. We have leaks from within, and then the Americans like, oh yeah, that was just Nazi propaganda. That was never going to happen. You're like, oh shit, Skorzeny almost got like literally the free world on paper.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's a good question because I could see both being equally possible, frankly. I mean, they were good. I'm not going to pretend that the German, spec ops guys sucked or something. They were definitely good. But on the other hand, that is a massively effective piece of propaganda to be like, we almost got your ass."
Yeah,
It
no one
was
had to have ever really taken a step toward that. They can just tell that story. And
That's their version of creepy crawlers, bro.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty
right.
fast.
Yeah. But no, to that end though, I mean, not to jump ahead, past the whole, the what's it called, the Hungary thing, but after that, he did do that sort of chaos agent thing in the Ardennes during the Battle of the Bulge, and indeed, there was like a 2 week span where a good portion of the American forces in France thought Eisenhower had been assassinated
Mhm.
because of a rumor.
Misinformation, even back then, wild how that works.
Yeah, notice the same people are pissed about it.
And it's funny. The stories that surround Skorzeny in his early years, during Nazi Germany, are actually, as we'll get to, he actually does these things later on. He's actually doing these things. He's actually operating,
Yeah,
um, and so it's the fact he probably was just telling tales, and we really couldn't imagine. Aside from the operations that are, he was definitely
yeah.
at.
Well, real quick
He
though,
also,
the Hungary thing. So basically, the prime minister was like, okay, I want to go talk to the allies, and the Germans were like, no, don't do that. So they covertly dispatched Skorzeny to go and kidnap his son, his big fat Hawaiian shirt party animal son, um, to and then to be like, oh yeah, you sure you want to go talk to fucking Stalin about switching sides, pal? Um, and yeah, he didn't. Let's long story short, he did not. Not until the Germans had because I forgot to mention this, but there was about a million. I want to say, is it a million too many, or was it 100,000? Okay, it was 100,000. 100,000 German troops were at least in or on the other side of Hungary, and an immediate shift from sides in light of that would be disastrous for the German war effort. So they at least needed to let him hold his feet to the fire with his son until the German troops had made it back into Germany or at least Poland. Um, and so yeah, that worked out. And then as I mentioned before,
Forced to
that
resignation, I think, right?
yeah, well, they forced his resignation. And by the way, he was talking a lot of trash on the radio. He was literally addressing the entire nation of Hungary to be like, yeah, fuck the Germans. We're done with them. We're dropping them like a bad habit. Um, and we're switching to the commie side. See how that works out for you, Hungary. But what's it called? So he says that, and then like within 12 hours, they've got his son, and he goes, "I'm actually stepping down. No particular reason. Nice knowing you guys. See ya." And they installed like the crown prince or something, which they transferred it from being a parliamentary system to back into a monarchy in order to keep the alliance intact.
Which,
Effective. We'll keep saying effective.
yes.
Super effective, even.
Well, it didn't, not for long. I mean, what was
It
this
was
for?
long enough to get those troops back.
I don't know. At least they, hopefully people got home to their wives and children.
Oh, they got their wives and children were eaten by gulag prisoners and within 3 or 4 years, dude. But what's it called? So the Battle of the Bulge, everybody knows this was like sort of the turning point in the war. Hitler, again, this is the thing about I keep coming back to with Hitler. Hitler was naive. He thought that the Soviets, it was a matter of time until, much like he foolishly thought that the British people would come to their senses about National Socialism, and he let them go at the Dunkirk offensive. He also foolishly believed that it was merely a matter of time before the Western powers broke with the Soviet Union. But joke's on him. The Rockefellers provided the liquid funds in order to finance the Bolshevik Revolution, and long through Stalin's premiership of the Soviet Union, he never missed a fucking interest payment on paying those guys back. So, yeah, what a doofus Hitler was again for thinking that it wasn't rigged from the start against him.
It makes you wonder if the business plot had been pulled off. What where would we all be winding up?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done an episode on that, so I can't. I don't really know.
Oh yeah, I don't want to give you anything too crazy. You're familiar with like the base parts of it, or
Oh yeah, Smedley Butler was going to be
yes, sir.
the.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't want to
yeah,
say
I know
anything
about
where I
it.
was going
Yeah,
to ruin it for you.
yeah, yeah. No, I know about it, but I haven't looked into it. Like, cause whenever I look at like a big thing that, like, especially if a TV show is being made about it, I'm like, this is bullshit, right?
The movie, for how good of a story that truly is, the fact that the movie Amsterdam is all we've gotten of it is that itself is a war crime, because that's just a terrible fucking movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll veer away from that though. But what was I just gonna say before about oh yeah, so the Battle of the Bulge just was like a turning point. Stupid Hitler thought that it was a matter of time till the Soviets would, do something that pissed off the Western powers. Not gonna happen. So his strategy in earnest was just gotta hold the Americans back until that inevitably happens. Again, this is the problem when when your ideology is like firmly footed on Nietzscheanism, where you think like there's no way we can lose, and if we do, we'll just let ourselves get killed. Which is what they did. But anyway, so um and oh yeah, I forgot that the Looney Tunes part. So Otto Skorzeny now is basically playing Wile E. Coyote and turning around street signs so that the Americans go the wrong way. He's dressing up in various poorly disguised costumes and going, "I think they went that way," and stuff like that. And it was all kinds of mischief, but it's kind of funny,
All
though.
this in violation of the Hague Act too.
I guess, but he beat the case, of course. Let's not forget at the Dachau War Crimes Tribunal. He beat the case because there was documentary evidence of the Allies planning to do. By the way, why didn't the fucking Germans do this for every single allegation of war crimes and misconduct during World War II? Because every single thing that that they're accused of, the Allies also did, bombing civilians. Actually, I don't think the Germans even did bomb civilians, but let's not get into it. The point is that he had a solid legal case, which is et tuo.
Yeah, yeah. And he gets away with it because in this case it's hardly consequential. You know, uh, given who writes history, for Skorzeny to continue on, there had to be, they're not really they're not really interested in what he was going to get off anywah.
Well, okay,
So
yeah. That now we're going to get into the schizo realm, but
yeah,
yes.
so it's just, yeah, they're just coming up with whatever, trite justification they can after the fact, to you know provide a reasonable paper trail.
Plausible.
Yeah, yeah. He
KP,
slipped
I
through the
assume
cracks is the whole
K
gist of his story. He slipped through the cracks. Yeah.
exactly. Well, yes, that's the very convenient day. So KP, I assume you're familiar with Operation Gladio.
Uh, Give me more on that, because in my head I'm talking about, like, in my head I'm about to talk about denazification courts. So I'm scattered.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do
Yeah,
detox. So
yeah.
he was in waiting. Well, fair enough. I am jumping ahead here. So he was in trial for for war crimes, beats the case because he proves with documentary evidence that the Allies were going to do the same thing. And then there's a long process, as you alluded to just now, known as denazification, where they was basically like that scene at the end of 1984 where they like make you say that 1 + 1 is 3 to so and just to prove that you've uh, dumped out any wrong thing from your head. And I guess it was like a lengthy 2 year process or whatever, but he one day apparently the door was open and he sort of just moseyed out.
Yeah. I think later on record, he says the Americans helped me, and that
Yeah,
gets no play at all. Backing up just half a step to
sure.
his what who he was talking to during his time at Dachau. He talked to a few interesting people. One he realized after the fact was Wild Bill Donovan of the OSS.
Of course.
Um, he also met with let's see here, a gentleman who at the time he was introduced to as Mr. Martin. In his memoirs, he states that he thinks it's David Martin, who was at the time director of the International Relief Organization, which was a front for the Office of Policy Coordination, OPC, which was
Yeah,
OSS.
you know me.
Yeah, the
Other people's property.
um yeah, but so he's meeting with and he also the same guy that interviewed him, some guy named Silver, Arnold Silver. Later, this is all at Camp King in Germany, which was after the war was taken over by the Allies because there had already been an interrogation center. It suited their purposes perfectly. Uh, Arnold Silver interviews Skorzeny. Skorzeny, as we'll see, ends up going off and getting into all sorts of shenanigans. He also interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Walter Mosig, if anyone's familiar, who also escaped Camp King, just out of the fucking blue.
Out of
And
the fucking blue.
and he ends up crossing paths with Skorzeny again in Spain.
No, wow, what a small world.
Yeah, it's just, oh, you were at Camp King
What a
too?
small Iberian country.
Yeah. So he's getting he certainly has a lot of paperwork being written up on him while he's there, and there's ideas are starting to
Percolate.
yeah, of where he'll be suited best.
Now, also I should mention though, that I don't know about the I didn't look deeply into the Dachau war crime tribunals, but I do know that the Nuremberg trials were conducted by the intelligence division, specifically psychological operations, in the intelligence division of the military, U.S. Army, actually. So I imagine that the Dachau War Crimes Tribunal also were the people talking to him were 100% intelligence. So this is like a who's who. This was like him meeting his new bosses, basically.
Same as the old boss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
all this in the place where they're doing bluebird experiments and shit. Like it's just very, very
yeah.
fortuitous. Yeah.
Um, but what's it called? So they he escapes, and apparently he spends like 6 weeks in living in a German farmhouse in Bavaria, undercover. Eventually, he makes his way to Phalangist Spain, where he quickly makes friends with Generalissimo Franco, and offers military and intelligence. Well, I guess consultation would be the word.
Yeah, that's a perfect word. That goes on
Um,
the stub.
Sure. And you mentioned before we started, or while when we first started, Patrick, but the he assisted that Krupp guy to getting to Argentina. They call it the rat line. They call it the that's what I think Simon Wiesenthal calls it. But what's it called? It was, it was a way for former members of the Nazi Party to get to various different South America countries, and I would imagine that Spain would be a good place to stop. Before going to a Spanish speaking country south of the equator.
There was a yeah, and there was we'll get to it, but Sofindus, I forget what it stands for, was this was a intelligence gathering apparatus or in Spain that it's the same thing that Mosig and Skorzeny ended up. Skorzeny was he was running the Spinna, the
Der
spider
Spinner,
network.
yeah, der
Spinna, yeah.
Spider.
But what Sofindus was specifically for was prepping people to go to they were working in Morocco and particularly in Argentina. They I think in 44 was when they start it's crazy. In 44 they realized that we need to start gathering up the creme de la creme of the Nazi officer uh class because we can't just let them die or
Sure.
be taken by allied forces. And so that's they were the ones that were helping channel these guys into these friendly countries. But what's funny is before the war, so Findus was a Nazi you know run group. After the war, it was the ownership was just peaceably transferred over to World Commerce Corporation, which was
A
uh
CIA front.
yeah, exactly. So they're uh it's like they just moved right in, desks
Yeah,
can
well,
stay,
it's paperclip shit.
yeah, desks can stay, leave the filing cabinets, just leave the keys. We know what we're doing here.
It's a turnkey operation.
Is that like the Reinhard Galen stuff or whatever?
Perfect. Yeah, and Galen started the Galen organization started out of Camp King as well.
No
No
Um,
shit.
shit. I didn't know that part.
so uh, it's just um, this was I think so we're gonna get to France. I don't want to jump ahead, but Dulles at the time he was a big proponent of working the Galen organization and getting that up and running. I think also right after the war he's working with he was with freaking what's his face uh my notes are madness.
Well, the story's madness too, buddy. Don't give don't beat
It's
yourself
not.
up too
Yeah,
much.
don't be too self-critical about it.
Like we haven't even talked about Madonna yet.
But also, Werewolf, though, this was a plan, supposedly, but I don't believe this is another piece of propaganda. I don't believe the Werewolf SS was ever going to be a thing. It supposedly, it was Skorzeny came up with this idea that all of the remaining, undercover Nazi operatives would be doing like lone wolf attacks on various, places that are under control of the Allies, in order to spur on. Very helter skelter, by the way. Definitely comes from the mind of an intelligence guy, not from the mind of a a patriot or or even a ideologically oriented person. It's obviously like just based on terror tactics. Yeah, I just think this is this is where we're getting into Gladios now.
Yes.
So KP, I don't you it'll probably jog your memory as soon as I start talking about it. But Gladio is this program for the CIA in order to leave behind forces in different Soviet influenced areas. And they would train local different organizations, no matter what their ideological basis was. They would work with any group. But you'll see, by the way, this is why I'm connecting it to Skorzeny, of course. But a lot of them in the Cold War in Europe, particularly, they're fighting. So this is the CIA. They're fighting against the communists. What do you use as an underground movement against communists? Neo-Nazis. So there was this the CIA funded tons and tons of um, neo-Nazi groups all across Europe during the Cold War. No, most notably and most evidenced is the what was called the strategy of tension in Italy, where they were really worried, for a good reason, frankly, that there would be a socialist party take power in Italy, and they would become friends with the Soviets or whatever. And yeah, it was a pretty close election a few times. So I don't know if I would go to this length, but they actually financed plane hijacking. They did several bombings, and many civilians were hurt, by the way. And it was all to make it seem like communists were doing terrorism in order to keep people from voting for the Socialist Party in Italy.
Too
So,
bad
and by the way, it was all
governments.
evidence later that these were far right groups that were, supposedly homegrown terrorists. But schizo time, tinfoil hats on, everybody. I got to tell you, I feel like Skorzeny's the guy. He's probably the missing link between all of these groups and the spooks. Um, because he's in an amazingly perfect position to do so. First of all, we know that he was let out, and so he owes a certain debt of gratitude to the CIA or the OSS, as it were. But the Anglo-American team members, and the other thing is he's a literal SS guy who was in pictures with Hitler. Obviously, this is going to sell very well to any teenager who's being, much like those literal 80 IQ teenagers who are talked into buying fake bombs from an FBI agent. I'm sure all you got to do is like show his scar, and all these guys in 1960 whatever are like, oh my god, it's Otto Skorzeny. This is I'm literally fangirling right now.
Grown men are fainting over Oscars, Amy. Jeez.
I always liked when they made friends with everybody too, when they were like, if it suited their purposes. Like I always kind of wondered how Germany and Japan made it all work, where they're like, hey, like we're the master race, but like you guys are cool. You have a very unique culture.
Honorary Aryans.
That's
They
is that
called it
legit? That's what they
honorary
told them.
Aryans, which is kind of insulting because the Japanese can't even say that word.
oh, that's rough.
That's
Horror.
oh,
What would they talk about? Ooh.
I mean, they both did have like a fairly, I mean, to this day, Japanese people are fairly, chauvinistic, I guess would be the word, as far as racial purity goes. They do not like if you go to Japan and try to pick up on Japanese chicks. I'll tell you that much.
as
Yeah,
a guy in the Navy who had a lot of friends that wound up in Japan, none of them had really great stories. Cool pictures. They had a good time over there. And the way the way I heard the differentiation was everyone in Japan looks like they're from the future. That's one my favorite thing I've heard.
as in they look like they're from the future because
Eek,
they're not present whatsoever and they're not paying attention to what you're saying. Uh,
yeah, because you're a gaijin.
what is that,
You're a
Goyim?
Baka no Gaijin, all right? So there's no reason for them to be listening to what you have to say.
There's no need to toss that kind of language around, Scott. No, not when we're talking about Otto Skorzeny, and his dumbass little vacation he took in France.
Yeah, tell us about France. I don't know anything about this, so go ahead.
He he scrammed to Spain, and he actually
That
is
was
great.
kind of like his base of operations, but go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah. Master race, the homeland, all that shit, but you can't pass up a beach. Are you kidding me? You can't get a tan in the motherland. But particularly two names that I wanted to emphasize: Pierre Berthaud, director of the French National Police, and Roger Wilbeau, they rhyme, head of
Most
direct.
names in French do have O in them, actually. Yeah.
These two, couple peas in a pod, head of the Directorate of Territorial Surveillance, have a meeting with Otto and his wife, uh,
Wife
and
number
also
two or three?
Ilsa, which
I
are
don't know which
two
one that
One
is.
of them was the Hitler's finance minister or something. It was the niece or something, right?
that
I
she,
believe so. Yeah, that's when he was like in his like peak Hitler favor days. Yeah, but I think he divorced her for another chick later.
Oof.
uh, yes, yeah, that was, I think he
All
actually
right, well,
got
now
caught.
now we've really lost the script. We're debating on what wife the guy's on. What gives a
Yeah, I'm not
shit about that? Go ahead, tell us about France.
That's my fault
did
too. I
he?
thought I was connecting dots.
Yeah.
Who gave less of a shit about which wife was which than Otto
Oh
Skorzeny?
yeah, we care more than him. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but they were offered asylum to go off to France, and Berthaud and Weibo were both running what were called Compass
That
Rose.
guy really liked Japanese cartoons. Weebo.
Uh, um, they're helping operate the Compass Rose, which is basically
Yeah, Stella's. I knew about this. Go ahead.
proto Gladio, essentially in France,
Yeah.
using uh, uh, disaffected Nazis, Nazis who can't let go, or they don't give a shit. Funnily, they don't care. It at a certain level strata of power, ideology is it's
Ancillary.
it's a piddling thing. Yeah, it means nothing, and they'll use these people who do believe in something uh, to whatever ends. And so you have these guys who are right right wing French nationalists who were more than happy to run operations against
Also,
communists.
you. Oh yeah, you're getting into it. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So now what's funny is Berthaud, and you mentioned this. You said Angleton's probably Skorzeny's handler for all we know. From what I could find, one degree of separation between Skorzeny and Angleton. At a couple points. Berthaud was a friend of Angleton, who at the time in 48, when they had this meeting, Skorzeny, his wife, and these two, he was head of foreign liaisons. So he would have known about everyone that
Yeah.
they're
Who's in the
entertaining.
country?
Yeah. So it's just there was always a beat on this guy from the beginning, from Germany to wherever Spain, France. So he's uh, and we I could go on and on because what Berthaud and Weibo they connect all the way down to, like, say, just the fact that it's called the Compass Rose operations. If NATO comes to mind, it wasn't even
Sure. Yeah. I didn't even
so.
make the connection, but yeah.
These ideas are kind of just like building on top of each other, and they're whatever. Yeah. So if you want to pick up from after France,
Well, I
he's
was just gonna say that French nationalist group, the French nationalist group
yeah,
you're talking about,
yes,
was the ones that that Angleton was buddies with.
perfect.
And if I don't know if you've ever read Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper, KP, but I don't agree with his thesis on this, but he seemed to believe that there was some French de Gaullists in the in Dealey Plaza, supposedly. But I don't know if I so and what I said to what you when you said, maybe Otto Skorzeny has something to do with the JFK assassination. Well, I said, well, I'm pretty sure that everyone who was there on in Dealey Plaza was a veteran of the Bay of Pigs. So I imagine that they probably didn't need a lesson on killing a big-headed Irish president from the likes of Otto Skorzeny. But but that said, it is an immensely, incredibly interesting connection between James Jesus Angleton and Skorzeny, because that he's the guy. He's the like he's like the I mean they call him the ghost. He's like the guy who's everywhere. And the other thing is if, Patrick, did you read Aberrations in the Heartland of the Real by any chance?
I've read chapters of it.
Okay. Have you
That's
read it, KP, by any chance?
No, sir.
I believe highly recommend it. Dr. Wendy Painting. Um,
mm,
Aberrations in the Heartland of the Real is a sort of road story, if you will, about the real story about Timothy McVeigh. But in it, she kind of goes over the fact that whenever you see any mention of Lewis Jolly and West, it's like shorthand for saying MK Ultra here, MK Ultra here, and there's other people who have this sort of same like figure or have this same sort of like iconic like what's the word? Jungian archetype almost of spookiness. And James Jesus Angleton's one of them. Lewis
mm.
Jolly and West, and now I got to say the third of the Trinity here has to be Otto Skorzeny, right? Like,
One more and they could start a boy band.
yeah. Well, I'm a big Who fan, so I think they should stick with the power trio.
The Who's not a power trio.
Musically speaking, they are.
You can,
Oof. You disassociate Keith Moon altogether.
No, I'm
no,
saying that the drums, guitar, and bass is the trio, and
honestly,
Roger Daltrey can kick rocks.
Oh, okay. I wasn't. I thought you were going to sit there and be like, "Listen, I don't care what you thought you were researching. You can't go to those websites." But okay.
No, yeah, he did. He never did make that documentary.
I was researching for a documentary. How many times have I said that out loud? Oh shit.
Oh man, I would like to see that documentary because I don't want to think of Pete Townsend that way.
I always confuse Pete Townsend and Corey Feldman, so I really have a hard time
Well,
drawing
Predator
the
and
line.
Prey. Well, I suppose it is just two mirror images of each other. But I was gonna say is so I just think it again, Skorzeny is like this, like he is, and by the way, now we're getting into like the sort of speculative area because all this stuff he writes about in his books you got to kind of take with a grain of salt because he writes about himself like he's a superhero at times. When you read the stuff about World War II, you're like, okay, there's other people that can verify whether this happened. There's military records. There's the other side. But when he's talking about shit he does for the Gamal Nasser, um, um, you know, regime in Egypt, who the hell knows what is going on? But basically, the log line of is it because again, I'm not comfortable saying this is the absolute truth. Is that and by the way, there was a lot of Germans who went to go work with the Nasser regime in not just Germans either, but just people who are ideologically National Socialists. Francis Parker Yockey of America was a Nazi sympathizer, and he went to Egypt in after after World War II because he was like fuck America, and
Yeah, NASA or Nasir? Which one do you want to go to, fellas? Call your shot.
yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, actually. Um,
And a
but
couple of you get to work for Disney.
yeah, that's true. They were members of the Walt Right.
Uh, God damn it. That was
I can't take credit for that one. R.I.P. to Lorne Ferguson, who came up with that. He is no longer on this earth, but he came up with that. It's very funny. But anyway, so
what a
what was I
wit.
gonna say? Is the yeah, the Nasser there was a military coup. I believe that there was like after the it was after World War I and like the what do you call that, the Sykes-Picot agreement, where they carved up all of the Middle East into basically in order to get them to fight with each other, is how I view it, frankly. But in the wake of that, of course, the Nasser regime took over, and in some way, I think they're still like kind of in power now. Like I know like his son or something was in charge of the military junta, like when I was in high school, at least. Am I
Uh,
wrong?
let's find out.
Well, even in France, I think they still talk about the French nationalist movement or whatever it is. I always get confused with their politics over there, but I think it was Marie Le Pen that they were saying that her father was a Nazi.
Oh, he
Or
was.
yeah, so it's that weird thing where you're like, okay, these are people still in the public eye. Like how's that one still happening?
Yeah, well, Mussolini's grandkids are all like major figures in Italy.
It's it doesn't shock me. Um, the Hitler family with a couple of spots in Long Island.
I've
If
heard
they
that. Yeah, there's Adolf Hitler Avenue, or there was Adolf Hitler Avenue on Long Island. Yeah.
well, they had that whole thing was a little crazier too, because that was the German American owned camps that they had out there, which they had one in Sussex County, New Jersey. That my father was a teacher up in Sussex County. He was a shop teacher in Andover.
At the camp.
Yes, correct, at the camp. They allowed him
You
in.
do have nice blonde hair, blue eyes, KP. I gotta say.
It's it's crazy too, because I don't want to just do my own bits on here or anything, but I thought you
No,
guys
go
would
ahead.
appreciate this one. I always sat there. I'm like, it's not hard to sit there and be like, okay, so we're not gonna. If I was an American, I'd be like, well, I'm not gonna fight for Germany. And then they're like, hey, did you know that you have superpowers because you have blonde hair and blue eyes? And how would you like to bang a girl with blonde hair with blue eyes and make super children? I was like, I'll join this fraternity, but I'm not betraying my country. And then I'd probably be sitting there with uh, I would be an easier sell than I thought. I want to sit there and pretend like, no, I'm an American patriot. But if you throw some Paris Hilton pussy my way, I'm probably going to start thinking twice about it.
It's true.
My
It's
girlfriend just groaned in the background when she heard it. She's, for the record, she has blonde hair and blue eyes too. So,
far out. If you
Well,
live in
even
the
this,
dream, KP. Um,
someone else's dream, right?
yeah.
well,
um,
even his Pledge of Allegiance.
well, I will say this is that they used to throw up a Roman salute during the Pledge of Allegiance, not for nothing. Just saying.
That was the Bellamy salute. That was my joke before.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, gotcha. But what's it called? The yeah, and also worth mentioning too that on Long Island, by the way, perhaps in a direct piece of retribution on this, but they did have a German and Italian concentration camp on Long Island. I don't know if you knew that piece of history, KP.
I believe it's Governors in Levittown.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I would
Great
call that.
club, love it. Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's I think a bit of cruel and unusual performances by Gino Bisconti might have happened there. War crimes, even.
Not the first time, not the last time he's been associated with those things.
Yeah, true that. But no, but truly though, there was a much like a lot of ink has been spilled about the Japanese internment camps in the West Coast. But indeed, in Long Island, there was a German and Italian concentration camp for recent German and Italian immigrants because they viewed them very much the same way as they did the Jews did the Germans, or the Germans did the Jews rather. That was a bit of a Freudian slip.
Well, I liked what was it? If World War I America, and I know we're babbling here, and I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
But the
welcome.
well, World War One, the big thing why they were like, hey, I don't know if it's probably why they had to pump up the idea of the Lusitania. I don't want to unpack too much here, but
Next
they
week's
had to have it.
episode, tune into that, KP. We'll be discussing that at length.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
That's
Next week.
fantastic, man.
Yeah.
But they had to pump up that sort of an idea here because they sat there and like, all right, how are we, America, going to sell the idea when our two largest populations are German and Irish in
Yeah.
America at this point? And we're gonna say, you guys have to go fight Germany for Britain. And you're like, that you're getting middle fingers in response to that
Yeah.
one. Nobody's gonna go.
Yeah.
Um,
To this
it was
day,
a
I believe, as far I mean, at least out of all Caucasian people, I do believe that German is the highest percentage of ethnicity amongst all those, and particularly in the Midwest. We're East Coast creatures, so we do have more Irish people here, myself included. But yeah, no, it's a fact that like all of flyover country is all German, all Teutonics.
that's well, I'm in North Jersey, so you could tell me I was essentially in Italy, and I would believe you.
I think I would believe it too if I was there. Yeah, I'm pretty close to Rhode Island, pretty close to Providence, and let me tell you, sometimes I wonder myself.
It's they get a little interesting, and a lot of Italians are actually secret Germans. That's another one I found out.
Oh, that's a new piece of schizo lore for me.
Oh yeah, they well, a lot of people change names and stuff like that too. A lot. That's what makes me laugh so much about. And I promise you, we're getting back at Otto. It's what makes me laugh about Otto because so many people went to drastic efforts to get away from party affiliations, but Otto
Sure.
never renounced his Nazi beliefs ever.
Why would he?
That's honestly, it was really on a resume. He was almost bragging about like, hey, do you guys need me to lead some sort of a counterinsurgency for you? Because that's kind of what I do.
Like literally, that's what I'm saying. He's like he has a superpower that convinces young impressionable right wingers into fighting the CIA's battles for them against the Soviets.
We don't have
It's an impressive hit list.
we don't have Otto Skorzeny anymore, do we? What's our modern equivalent?
Modern equivalent of Otto Skorzeny would be,
Whoever it is, they're a cornball.
yeah, I guess Oliver Anthony or whatever.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
You remember that guy?
That's not where I was going. I was going to sit there and be like, you got to. They changed it up a little bit. So
Shane
now it's
Gillis,
like
I guess, would be the guy. CIA asset.
I don't know if anyone's going fighting wars for Shane Gillis.
You wait, Patrick. You wait.
Ah, jeez. Um, uh, yeah,
Dude,
no.
if you don't go fight Iran, you're retarded.
Were you gay?
that's if you had, you know who you could get though, like in the Shane light for it. You if Peyton Manning was asked to sit there and do like one of those stare at the camera commercials and talk about how we need to go do this, or like it's really time we get in there and just we got to help these people in the Ukraine. You would see such a different response to the way that war is going. But instead of like, no, let's get Amy Schumer out here to talk about it. Amy Schumer and Sean Penn
Well,
have really great
KP,
ideas.
as a lifelong New England Patriots fan, not that I like sports anymore, but as a young man who is a lifelong New England Patriots fan, I can tell you, nothing would make me more averse to a war than Peyton fucking Manning's face.
He's got the Bud Light commercials, though, man. Also, oddly enough, who's friends with more warlords, Sean Penn or Otto Skorzeny?
Hmm.
That's a toss up. Well, they're both CIA assets too.
Nailed it.
So yeah, guy, I think that's a tie. I think we're gonna have to give that a tie.
It's a if you show me a warlord, I will show you the Sean Penn interview where he's like, "You don't understand. I hang out with him. We have tea. He's baked me things before. He's actually a really sweetheart. You guys don't know the real him. You know, he is. Sean Penn has the political affiliations of like the battered girlfriend, where it's like he can be sweet sometimes. You don't really
Yeah.
know him.
Well, listen, when you're high on coke with a warlord, you're both super fucking gacked out of your minds. You're obviously going to think you're going to have decided to start a business together. You're going to have to just told the guy you love him. Man, I love you, man. No one gets you but me. I mean, anyone who's taking cocaine knows this.
By the way, Sean Penn, who was married to Madonna, who played.
Evita.
That's right, sir.
Wow, now it's all coming together. So I guess you just answer your own question. Who or not? You answered Patrick's question. Who is today's fucking Skorzeny? It's obviously Sean Penn.
Oh,
He'll be
no.
playing in a movie.
I mean, I can kind of see it. Like facially, it's not that far big of a stretch.
He'll.
Nope, give him the scar on his face. I keep cutting Patrick off. I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh no, that's all right, man. The nature of this thing. Yeah, Sean Penn on top of someone's shoulders, maybe.
Right, and then also he was like, "Whoa, you just cut my head."
How about Tom Cruise on top of Sean Penn's shoulders? Yeah, if we really want to have a leading man, Tom
True.
Cruise plays Otto Skorzeny.
I think that's what we're all waiting for here.
So Sean Penn plays him, and then Tom just reprises his role from whatever the Nazi movie was he did, where they were going to try to kill Hitler. Who did he play? I'm trying to remember.
He was Rommel, I believe.
He
Oh,
was. I literally
Yeah.
I have such a weird thing with Tom Cruise that I just avoid his movies at all costs.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got a weird uncanny valley thing going on.
I think
Oh
it's.
yeah, you can't quite tell if he's human anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta wonder.
Where does he start and the Thetans stop?
He plays Klaus von Stauffenberg, in case anyone's wondering.
Okay, well,
That's the
I
one.
don't. I
What's
didn't
the name
actually
of the
see
movie?
that
It was
movie.
called like the Falcon.
Valkyrie.
Yeah, yeah.
There it is. Thank you.
Yeah, Operation Valkyrie, which I do think Rommel had something to do with it, though. But either way, um, so yeah, the other thing. So now we're getting to the most possibly, I guess, controversial aspect of the history of Otto Skorzeny is the I don't believe that I've so this is the thing. The Israelis claim they contracted him to kill German scientists. By the way, Patrick sent me a video from a YouTube channel called Unpacked.
Oh man.
What are they unpacking? Fudge, by the way. But no, it is the most vile fucking YouTube channel I've ever seen. I've seen them before, by the way. I've seen them do a entire video about why the USS Liberty is not a big deal and shit like that. By the way, KP, I'm sure as a Navy veteran, you are insulted by that, the USS Liberty being minimized.
It's a trippy one, man. The names of a lot of the ships, and then the same way we'll sit there and be like, how did we allow this person to continue on in their life? And then you read about like there's people we named ships after, and you're like, oh, like that was the most evil dude we had, and we named a boat after him. Yeah, I'm not saying anything. Carl Vinson.
Sure. But anyway, but Unpacked is this channel. It's literally made by the state of Israel. And they did this whole video about how Otto Skorzeny's bad, but we needed him in order to kill German scientists who were going to develop the same technology that every first world country had. And they also just casually mentioned that they were mailing letter bombs to non-combatants, which is terrorism.
Yeah. Right after that, they said it was his cadence in that video was just really upsetting.
It's like almost like it's like a what's that that California music festival, Coachella. It's like if Zionism was Coachella.
Imagine just a guy, nondescript guy with a beanie for no reason, right?
Nondescript. I think that nose warrants description.
I people can imagine but his whole attitude was just like Israel had to do everything it could to stop the Nazi scientists aiding Egypt in its nuclear operation.
Not nuclear. Wait, slow down.
Ballistic missile.
It was just a fucking ballistic missile.
Yeah.
It was just a regular ass.
Yeah, in the video, he's like, and there were rumors that they were tipping them with nuclear and chemical agents and shit, and it was just,
No, they weren't.
but yeah, his whole and then he says,
Also, where would they have gotten the nuclear materials? It's not like they had inside guys in America stealing barrels and barrels and barrels and barrels of nuclear material from a fake company that was started by Israeli nationals. Oh, I'm sorry, I gave up the joke.
Scott, that's real. That
Too
happened.
real, you might even say.
You can Google this on the Israeli search engine. It's Netanyahu.
Yeah. It took me a second. I like it though. Oh, you mean John J. Sullivan?
The missing Sullivan brother.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of them here where I'm from. But what's it called? Yeah, so this
Innocent.
video's vile, but basically they make the case. This is the other thing. Skorzeny tells on himself a lot in his lifetime, and particularly in his memoirs. He doesn't say he worked for the Israelis in his memoirs. So I have to wonder whether he even, if he did work for the Israelis, did he know he was working for the Israelis, or was, and maybe he did. I'm actually most willing to believe that he pretended not to know he was working for the Israelis. Actually,
He's got like an Iceman thing. You guys know about Richard Kuklinski?
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, the guy who used to kill people and then put him in the ice so it wouldn't be. It turns out he's a mob hitman and stuff, but he was like a serial killer or whatever.
Oh
Very
yeah,
programmed to
Jersey
kill
guy.
stuff.
I
Jersey
knew him
guy.
from his dance.
Which part?
I knew him from his dancing.
That's
There's
Was
an
it his?
interview he does where he talks about how he goes to a gay nightclub, like undercover, to kill a guy, and he's like, "So I went in there, and I was dancing."
you could tell they gave him a little bit of booze. It's probably the best day of his life in prison, where they're giving him a little bit of booze and they're going, all right, talk. And then you can't tell when he's bullshitting and when he isn't. And then when he still is maybe slightly honoring a silence or something he's not supposed to out somebody on, and he catches himself. That's kind of how I feel about Skorzeny when he's talking about his own life, like his own writing, if you will. It was very a lot of half truths, sometimes for
Absolutely.
protecting other people, and sometimes for like, hey, I'm going to look like a real asshole when this comes out.
Absolutely. And the other thing worth mentioning too, that Skorzeny and Iceman Richard Kuklinski probably a fairly good analog for each other. I mean, frankly, and we talk about this all the time, of course, but CIA, or I should say, the mob exists at the pleasure of the CIA.
There you
So
go.
I got to imagine that Kuklinski probably killed some people in the same capacity that fucking Skorzeny did.
Yeah, yeah. No, that checks out entirely. I mean, the more people you've
The
pissed off,
Moors, they did so much fucking.
like Otto Skorzeny had to intervene. Uh, so the more people you've pissed off, it doesn't matter who is giving you the orders. Ultimately, it's it's not Israel. It's not America. It's the presiding power structure that spans across the ocean, and it doesn't. It's ideologically null. It kind of just so Skorzeny doesn't care. What we've talked about before. He was a avowed Nazi all his life, but he worked for Israel, and so who wants that? Who, yeah, who does it behoove for that to be part of the narrative? For
Didn't he? I'm trying to remember this part, but I think we talked about it. Uh, I definitely talked about it when I did an episode on him, but it was we couldn't exactly connect the dots, but the idea was that he probably or likely, if you want to go with the lore, I like how you guys do that. That's the good out for saying, like, we always say the Liberty Valance principle, where we print the legend. And
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, there
so
you go.
the lore, if you will, on Otto
Oh,
is that he killed well, no, not so that he worked for Mossad, whether he knew it
Mhm.
or he didn't. So he's working for Israeli intelligence, but at the same time, he also, I believe, helped train Yasser Arafat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I believe that I fully believe, because we all know that the PLO is like the fucking loser brigade.
Perfect. Yes.
They're literally the fucking, they're like the controlled opposition for the Palestinians, frankly. So yeah, it makes sense that the CIA would have trained Yasser Arafat.
That was the yes, that was the first thing I thought when I heard that.
Me
Uh,
too. Me
was that
too.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so Skorzeny's there to just totally what do you call it? Shoot in the foot this thing from the beginning,
Yeah.
uh yeah, yeah, it was never supposed to be. Yeah, he's probably putting ideas in their heads like that they'll actually
And
get away.
also, that makes perfect fucking sense that he was, if he indeed was working for the Israelis, to put then the Yasser Arafat faction into being, the presumed voice of the Palestinians. That's exactly what the Israelis want. They're the PLO is the group that the Israeli regime wants to work with. They're the people that they want to have the whatever state solution with. Not to get into any, edgy. I know you got a career to think about, KP. I'm not gonna fucking.
It's a sketchy one, man. They're always interesting with that because it's as soon as you say controlled opposition too, that is that lit it up in my head because in my mind I'm just like, oh, that's kind of funny. He was playing both sides. I'm still going to a Clint Eastwood fistful of dollars kind of a thing. He's going
Yes.
to play the two sides again. But no, you guys are like, oh, it's actually a little bit more like one side and the opposite. The I'm sorry, not opposition. The appearance of another side.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the tale as old as time. Um, but yeah, no. When I heard that detail about him training the PLO guys, I'm like, yes, that is definitely a piece of. That's not that that gets elevated beyond lore into the realm of fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, there's other things here. Notably, he probably, I'm just gonna say definitely had contact with the IRA. Who do you think put? This is what I want to wonder. Who do you think put the IRA in contact with what's his name, Gaddafi? Who could it have been?
The guy who runs guns and knows extremists in every
Knows
country.
both people? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wonder who it could have fucking possibly been.
The most charming
Guy with a scar ever.
yeah, there you go. Uh not what's the thing? Forrest Gump, uh Nazi
You can
Gump.
bail if you want.
Man, Forrest Nazi, Forrest Gumpsy. I got nothing.
Yeah,
Either
listen.
way, it's just
I thought I was
retarded.
going to talk about AIDS, but okay.
Oh, Jenny.
Um,
It's
but
just so
yeah, no,
retarded. Every single
he,
country he's in, he's there to create some sort of like totally the perfect foil to whatever presiding Western power needs to uh poise itself against. The one that's perfectly antithetical, the one that's like, in the same way that in PLO and Israel and then IRA, yeah, let's just blow up cars and that'll win hearts and minds.
it
As
was real greaseball shit. It was
perfect.
between the Germans and the Jews.
Goodfellas is the great movie to explain anything in world history at any time. There is a Goodfellas quote that correlates.
Yeah, it's real greaseball shit. Really falls into a lot of opportunity. It gives me a lot of opportunities to make analogies.
Aaron, that was all the money we had. We needed those Nazis.
We needed those German scientists, Karen. That's Nasser yelling at fucking Otto Skorzeny.
That's
Otto.
Otto, you rip off a bank and
Take it
what?
off.
You think you can just buy coats like it's no tomorrow? And you
Yeah.
did. You ran off with a few hundred uh, I think there was 150
Swiss francs. I know he also apparently, but we're about to get out of here. But one other thing was a detail was that there was this really famous bank heist that in the Nazis were losing the war, and they were like, we better get as much money as we possibly can so we can give it to all of our SS friends when we leave the country. And they robbed a German bank and just
Yeah.
stole, and all the SS guys just stole all like the Swiss francs, bearer bonds, pieces of gold, not like gold bullion because because they were leaving on a plane, but they took like all kinds of like little jewelry trinkets and stuff like that. And so apparently that's how he got his nest egg, was he participated in this bank robbery or whatever. But
Yeah,
yeah,
who was a Reichsminister of Economics or whatever it is at the time, checked his wife's supposed uncle,
oh
who then
right,
afterwards is just footing the bill for all of his little dalliances
true.
all up and down Europe and across the thing. But
Well,
yeah,
the
But
why always comes back to because it's profitable. That's why.
yeah.
yeah, so it makes the world go around. But yeah, so KP, anything else that you covered on your show that we missed by any chance? Because we are wrapping up now.
The essentials.
No, you guys are you do the true deep dive, man. That's why I knew it was going to be this isn't a topic you break out lightly. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because it takes
absolutely.
because you guys even connected dots I didn't have on my stuff here. But what was it? I know I don't want to give it away. Spoiler alert: he dies of lung cancer. At least that's what they say. But
Yeah, supposedly.
I didn't
Maybe
even
he's
know he was sick.
Tupacing out to this day.
Oh,
well, his daughter's Haktua. I don't know if you guys knew that, but really granddaughter probably. But
Yeah, I think
no,
maybe great granddaughter actually.
you talked about his the funerals, right? That he had.
Yeah, they all threw up Romans at the funeral. Yeah.
Oof. Uh, yeah, it's and what was it? The note I had in here was they all got together and sang some of Hitler's favorite songs to honor.
Oh, imagine just knowing Hitler's favorite songs, man.
Well, it
Country
you
Roads, uh,
Erica.
uh, American Pie. If you wouldn't have thought, but
Dreidel, 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 ironically. But no, but yeah, so I think we did do a pretty good job covering it all too. KP, thank you for joining us on the show. Is there anything besides history isn't boring your teacher was that you would like to promote to the listeners of the History Homos podcast?
well, I have two specials up on YouTube. The one of them I actually got flagged for. We found out later on it was political jokes. I made too many COVID jokes. They
Boo.
said, yeah, so it got taken down. I had like about 40,000 views on that, and it got removed. So they gave me
Oh,
the rights back to it. The record label, they were cool about it, but they were, it was very mafioso. There were here's a Goodfellas reference for you. They
it
gave
was
me
real
back my
greaseball
special,
shit.
and then they said, and now we got to turn our back on you.
Yeah.
So
ah,
so I got burned by that one, but the next one I did was completely independent. We filmed it at the Dojo of Comedy in Morris Plains, New Jersey, which is just emerging as a powerhouse. If you guys ever get a chance, please come by there. It's
Shout out. I know Bobby plays there a lot. Yep.
Bobby's not for nothing. Bobby did the audio for this album for me. So it's
My
a special. We have a video portion of it, but the audio was completely done by Bobby Tamburo. We put him behind the sound mixer and everything, and he did a great job on it. It's called The Last Recital because they're not comedy specials anymore, fellas. That everybody has one, so we're really just asking you to come to our recital. So
it's
that's kind of
true.
how the logic of that. Um, but very proud of the material on that one. A couple good history jokes in there too, which I was happy about. And then if you want to hear the full stuff that I couldn't allow, YouTube would not allow me to put on there, then they can check out the album over on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, everything like that.
Excellent, excellent. And at KP Burke, or is there an underscore?
So it's at KP Burke Sucks on Instagram, and that's where I'm
Oh,
putting out the 90-second reels, which is 90 seconds is about the time that you have to get somebody who's not interested in the topic interested.
true.
And it was, I'm sure other people did the research on this, but the first place I heard it mentioned was Andrew Scholes. He said that if it's people won't watch your hour special, but they'll watch 90 minutes of your clips.
hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's when the
there's
logic
truth to
kicked
that.
in. Oh, 100%. And what I realized is I was able to take condensed episodes of my old podcast, American Loser, and we were able to put it into 90-second snippets. And then people
Yeah,
do
that
their
was
own
what I was
research. And
watching of yours, and I was like, "Oh, this guy switched on. He's gonna have a great time in the show." Yeah.
well, you guys are mad fun too, by the way. And I'm kind of pissed I'm not on for the Lusitania next week, to be honest.
Well, it's not quite just the Lusitania. It's this is a maybe I'll just give you this is a little bit of a radio tease, as we call it in the industry here. But we'll be discussing William will be back next week. And we'll be discussing the book series Hidden History: The Secret Origins of World War One. Great book series. I recommend it wholeheartedly, and you should check it out.
I love that one then, man, because the World War One's finally getting a little bit of love thanks to Peter Jackson and a couple other filmmakers.
Oh yeah, that was
Um,
a pretty cool doco series.
it was I went with my dad. My dad and I are both history
That's a great
fans.
father-son activity.
Oh, it was so. Here's the way. This was my workaround for it, and I think you guys will appreciate this. Uh, if I was a kid and I wanted to watch Predator, my mom would be like, "There's no fucking way I'm letting you watch a movie with machine guns and aliens. That's terrible. Go hang out with your grandfather and go watch The Outlaw Josie Wales instead. Okay, that's history. At least that's kind. You know what I mean?"
Outlaw Josie Wales is a pretty badass movie. So yeah, that you ended up winning out.
I did, and then it accidentally spurned this whole lifestyle of history where I think all three of us have talked too much at a party one time about history. We're like, all right, I got to scale this back a little.
Being interested in anything is you're reeling people in. Oh, we're not. Oh, connection's unstable.
We're
We're
good.
bad.
How we living? I can hear you guys, or you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear. Nobody went away from me.
Oh, nice. All right, that's probably just.
Uh-oh.
Ironically, you did just pop out when you said that last thing. But anyway, now we're really fucking burying ourselves because we did a great
Frickin'
episode up until now.
Nazis. Freaking
Um,
not.
so anyway, anything else you want to promote to the peeps before we get out of here, KP?
No, thank you for having me on the show, guys. I think you guys have a great rapport, and shows like this is what I hope when people watch my reels and they want to know more info. I hope they're going to your guys' show because you guys are doing your homework.
Well, thank you, KP. I appreciate it. And for us, www.historyhomos.com for the RSS feed. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and most importantly, get over to our Substack page. That's historyhomospod.substack.com. And you can watch any episode of ours for free. And if you want more episodes, once a week, every Thursday, we put out a new bonus episode. And it's very much the same show. So I know a lot of podcasts, they go, okay, we got to do bonus content. What the fuck are we going to talk about? And sometimes they'll just like start recording the second after they, finish taping the regular episode. But no, we do not do that. We do an entirely new topic for each episode, and we tape it an entirely different night. That's how important it is that we give you quality content. So $5 a month for 4 episodes a month. Over at historyhomospod.substack.com. Please help us support the show. This has been our best year ever. Let's make next year our even better year than that. So please join us over there. And also you can follow us across social media at History Homos Pod. And you can join us at our Telegram group. At time of recording, still the most friendly place on the internet. T.me/historyhomos is the channel. T.me/historyhomos chat is the chat. And other than that, you can send me a email at historyhomos@gmail.com if you have any question, comments, or concerns. Or if you'd like to buy a t-shirt, you can send me your size and address to that email address. Die with dignity. Patrick, what would you like to say to the people before we go?
I did not see that coming.
Oof. Come on, man. You could have done better than that. All right, later, homos.
In a smoky room, whispers fly. Otto, Skorzeny, a shadow in the night with a glint in my eye. I planned the game, rescuing Mussolini. Oh, what a claim to fame! Caught in the spider's web, can you feel the thrill? Truth and fiction blend, bending every will. Daring deeds and whispered of mystery, living out my dreams. A soldier's heart, but a thief in disguise, behind enemy lines where the danger lies. I pulled off the stunts like a movie scene, but how much of it's real or just a dream? Caught in the spider's web, can you feel the thrill? Truth and fiction blend, bending every will. Daring deeds and whispered schemes, international man of mystery, living out my dreams. I sent my agents, we spun the threads across the world where the story spreads. Allies and enemies in a tangled dance. One wrong move and it's gone in a glance. Glorious, dangerous, but oh so unclear were the legends I spun, all based on fear. In the shadows I linger, a ghost on the run. Fame and fortune, but where's the fun? Caught in the spider's web, can you feel the thrill? Truth and fiction blend, bending every will. Daring deeds and whispered schemes, international man of mystery, living out my dreams. So here I stand in the webs I've spun, Otto, Skorzeny, the legend's just begun. Fact or fiction, I'll let you decide.